So, the Holy Roman Empire. Okay, this is something that is extremely overrated. Uh, it's kind of holy. It's not Roman, it's German. And it's not an empire, it's a bunch of kingdoms that are kind of band together, but not in any way that's useful. Okay, it's kind of like the Confederate States of America. It's kind of useless. They're not there if they need each other, but and that's it. So if you're thinking, wow, that sounds fantastic. If you think crap sounds fantastic, well, guess what? This is your day. Okay, they are led by the Habsburg dynasty. You can look up memes on them. They have the Habsburg chin. It's a very, very weak looking chin. They are super inbred. Okay, if inbreeding is a power, they have a magical inbreeding power. Okay, uh, they became wealthy originally by very carefully matched marriages, but then eventually they're just marrying brother and sister, marrying cousin. Don't get too far out the the family line. Okay, Maximilian the First. He tried to centralize power through the Reichstag, and that did not work at all. Okay, so it looks like it's big and daunting. It's full of Germans, so it should be powerful. But the truth is that it's about as an empire in itself, it's pretty worthless. Okay, and by the way, for anyone who's wondering if my great grandfather was my great grandfather was a king of Baden. Okay, Baden is located, if you can see the mouse, right there. So that is the kingdom of where my family came from, the Volzes. Okay, and that was my mom's dad's dad. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, that was probably easy to follow. Okay. Now Poland, on the other hand, this is a country that gets knocked over all the time. They were led by a group of nobility called the Sejm. Okay, they're powerful nobles. They made the peasantry into serfs, and the kings were worthless there because they had to be elected into their position, and they could be removed by the Sejm anytime they wanted, and the Sejm really couldn't put up a fight. So Poland is basically going to be like a tetherball and smacked around, spun around until it hits another hand or smacks into the pole. So anyway, uh, that is the Holy Roman Empire, and that is Poland. So if you were like, hey, why doesn't he ever talk about the Holy Roman Empire? Well, guess what? Boom, I did. Okay, so Russia during this time, you have the rule of the Ivans. You have Ivan the Great, of Ivan the Terrible, and Ivan the murdered by his grandfather. Okay, uh, this is known as the Duchy of Muscovy. Okay, this is centered around Moscow. So there's not really a place called Russia at this point. It's the Duchy of Muscovy. Okay, they're constantly threatened from the Polish, believe it or not. Don't worry, they'll get their revenge. And if you were really worried about the Russians getting their revenge, well, don't worry, it's coming. Also, the Mongols. Mongols threatened everyone. They're riding as fast as they can on their horses. They have, basically every soldier's going in with 4 horses. They have one that they ride until they wear it out, and then they have another. Then they'll just hop on another one and ride it until they wear it out. And if they really run out of food, then they just kill one of their horses and eat it. So uh, they're very culturally and technologically backward, according to everyone else in Europe. Uh, 400 years after everyone else gets rid of feudalism, they are still running that system in Russia. Okay, so people are still tied to the land. People don't have any freedom or rights. In fact, they're still waiting for the first of those there. And serfdom exists, you know, almost 50 years after slavery is abolished in the United States. And, if you're in a feudal land, they controlled who you married. You weren't allowed to go anywhere. They could trade you anytime you wanted to another thing. I'm not saying that it's the same as slavery, but it also sucks. Okay, so Ivan III, also known as Ivan the Great, okay, he was able to kick out the Mongols. Once he does, one of the things he's most known for is going to Constantinople as it's falling. He goes and rescues / captures the last daughter of the last emperor, Romulus Augustulus. He marries and saves his niece, who's the only heir that there is to the Byzantine Empire. And once he marries her, he declares himself the leader of the Third Rome. The first being the Roman Empire, the second one being the Byzantine Empire, and the third being Russia. Okay, so he marries the beautiful Sophia, or I've heard her called beautiful once. Okay, anyway, he marries her, so she didn't necessarily want to, but there's nothing you can do. And he also creates the Streltsy in Russia, which is a military class. Okay, now his grandson, Ivan the Fourth, or Ivan the Terrible, he didn't like the nobles, and he also killed his son and grandson so he would have no heirs. He was afraid that they were getting impatient waiting on him to die so they could take over, so he just committed a little bit of murder. Just a little bit. Not a lot of murder, just a little bit of murder, just two people in his family. That was his son and his grandson. A little bit of murder. Spain at this time was really the most powerful nation in all of Europe, and a lot of this has to do with the American colonies. They also kind of got things together on the Iberian Peninsula by conquering the Moors from Africa that had controlled them. Uh, they get a vast amount of wealth from the colonies. It actually, there's about 4 or 5 times the amount of gold in Europe after they conquer the Incas and the Aztecs. But they kept on extending their territory. And the problem is Spain doesn't really have a lot of resources on its own. It's very mountainous. You can't grow a lot of crops. So after this major initial push, everything really falls apart. Okay, they had high taxes on the people. They persecuted minorities, the Jews, the Moors, anyone who was not Catholic. Okay, they were led by Ferdinand and Isabella, then their grandchild Charles V, uh, then Philip II. That's really the last powerful Spanish ruler was them. To take over their lands, they did what was called the Reconquista, and they were able to conquer the Muslim, the Jewish population. Uh, they were able to do that even though they weren't always a majority in these areas, and their ability to conquer and control these populations are going to be crucial to the settlement of the American colonies. Okay, uh, so the Spanish Inquisition, what they did is they're part of this Reconquista, and what they're going to do is anyone who is not willing to become Christian, okay, you can do one of three things: you can convert, you can leave, or you can die. If you don't, and by the way, there might have been a little bit of torture involved in in your questioning. So in this case, you can see a guy who was put on the wheel, and they basically will stretch him until it tears him apart, rips off his arms and legs, or his hands or feet. Okay, so anyway, that's the Spanish Inquisition. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen them before, but right here on the screen in the top left-hand side, I have Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabel of Castile. Ferdinand of Aragon, he had the largest armies, and Isabel of Castile, she had a lot of money. Okay, so basically they're going to unite Spain really into one kingdom. Now it doesn't really unite the territories for a small period of time, but they're at this point powerful enough to kick the Moors out in 1492 and the Jews. So once this happens, they're no longer spending all their money on the military. They have money to expand their territories. And once again, I go back to controlling the population. By the way, later on we'll talk about Henry of Navarre, and he's from this area right here. So, Christian humanism, okay? This is Northern humanism, and one of the things that they do is they're going to criticize the Catholic Church's abuses, okay? So this is kind of an extension of the Reformation. Okay, they wanted to fix Christianity through education, so teach people, and they wanted to take out the worldliness and corruption. If you remember earlier, we were talking about popes. I believe that was 2 days ago. We were talking about popes, and we had the warrior pope on the one hand, and then you also have the pope who used his children. Yeah, a pope with children. That seems a little bit, like you're not being a good pope if you have children. So the father of this new study of humanism was a guy by the name of Desiderius Erasmus. That's him pictured over to the left, who looks like meh. Okay, he does not have an expression with much joy on his face. He traveled throughout Europe, and anyone who's a fanatic he attacked, no matter what type of fanatic you were. Okay, he thought the key to everything uh, was educating people and promoting reverence for God. Okay, uh, but he also wanted to take out all the corruption that was in the church. He wrote a book called The Praise of Folly, and there he made fun of the clergy for the abuses that they were doing. And his book is so offensive that the Catholic Church will go ahead and they'll create this list of books that are prohibited, so no one is allowed to read them. So if you're anyone who's having problems with the Catholic Church and you hear they have a list of books you can't read, then you're going to jump on those. Okay, and the truth was the Catholic Church was extremely corrupt at this time. A lot of people bought their positions in the church because they didn't have to pay taxes, and it was an easy way to collect extra money. Okay, Thomas More. Okay, by the way, this guy looks like a ball of fun. Okay, he at one point, because he wanted to exemplify just the way you should act as a Christian, he wore a hair shirt. Okay, and that's a shirt made of goat's wool, and what that does is it causes your skin to itch and break out. Okay, he was also one of the people who would whip himself as well, to try and get his flesh ready and to purify himself. Okay, he wrote a book where he criticized power and fame of the day. Okay, he would hate today everyone that's on TikTok. He would have a major problem with, and also YouTubers. You know, anyone that you people like. That like to make themselves famous. By the way, if you hear a lot of clickety clock, that is George. And George has long fingernails, and no matter how much I trim them, he still clicks and clacks every time he walks. Thomas More will later be executed through beheading. Okay, I don't know if you know this, but if you cut off someone's head, they will die, and that's what happened to Thomas More. And he was against the way that Henry VIII was doing his church. Now, if you don't know about Henry VIII, don't worry, we're going to get to him soon. And you'll find out that Henry VIII was not really a pious man, and he was not a very forgiving man. But we'll get to him later. Okay, so there is something called the Protestant. Sorry, I don't know why I said it like that. Let me see if I can make it even stranger. So here's what causes the Protestant Reformation under Martin Luther. Okay, one of those is the thing that I've been talking about, and that's called simony, and that is buying or selling church offices. Again, you would do this so that you could collect all the money and not pay taxes. Okay, even though the priests were required to not have families, many people that would buy these positions had families and had spouses and just basically collected money from the church. Nepotism. This is giving offices to the offices in the church to your relatives. Alexander VI made his son a cardinal. Again, if you are a pope, you should not have children. You're not supposed to, make sex with people. Okay? And having children means that you have. Anyway, I'm not saying that I agree with that. I'm just saying that that's kind of a Catholic tenet that you can't make sex. If you're a Catholic priest, you can't be married in any way. Absenteeism. This is where, oh wait, let me go to pluralism first. Pluralism is whenever you might hold several different church offices. This is so you can collect more money. Okay? Absenteeism is bishops, archbishops, and cardinals not visiting any of their churches or dioceses. So you might be in charge of several different churches throughout, England, but you might not ever go to England, and you might just have that position so that you can collect all the money. Then there's my favorite, indulgences. That's buying forgiveness of sins or using Jesus or the saints to reduce time in purgatory. So if you do something wrong, you have to go to the church and like, hey, I murdered 7 people yesterday, and I slept with my neighbor's wife. I slept with all my neighbor's wives. I have like 7 neighbors. So I did all those things yesterday. And then the priest would say, just pay us $40 and you will not have any more sins. Of course, they would charge a lot more than $40, but basically it was just kind of like, if you have enough money, you can buy your way out of the things that you've done wrong. If you're poor, sorry, you're going to go to hell. You know that time that you said that you were out of butter, but you weren't out of butter? It turns out it was a lie. I hope that you like hell. Don't wear a sweater. Okay? So anyway, this is what leads to the Protestant Reformation. So, let's look at the Protestant Reformation. Martin Luther was a monk. Now, if you look at him, he's pretty fat, so he's not really a good monk because monks were supposed to give up everything they have, and he apparently did not give up any of his food. Okay? You're supposed to dedicate your life to taking care of people. But he found many things were wrong with the church. Okay? He thought the church was teaching wrong. He had a problem with the sacrament. He had a problem with transfiguration, which is when if you're taking communion, the wine that's supposed to represent the blood of Christ and the bread that's supposed to represent the body actually turn into the blood and the body of Christ. Okay, so he had a problem with that. Okay, he has 95 problems. They're called the 95 Theses. Okay, or 95 Theses, plural, because there's 95 key problems he has. Now, he's not the first person to protest the church. People that did that before would later on be so violently murdered that, their parents would also die. That's how bad they were killed. Okay? So, he had support, and it worked for a couple reasons. One is is Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor. He was busy fighting a Muslim invasion by the Ottoman Empire that was in Austria at the time. So instead of him being able to go and kill Martin Luther, he was doing that. Okay. More importantly was all the German princes that supported him. Now, some of them actually believed it for religious reasons, but others, the largest landowner in the world, if I asked you that question, you can answer the same thing for any of the last 1,500 years and you would be correct. It's the Catholic Church. So, many German princes decided to support Martin Luther because if they did, they could take all of the Catholic lands away from the church. Okay? So they could become wealthier by doing that. Okay? And this is going to be true not only in the Holy Roman Empire or Germany, well, the Holy Roman Empire was Germany, but this would also be true in any other nation like England later on that would support these splits from the Catholic Church because they could get the land. He married a nun. Her name was Catherine von Bora. There she is pictured in the bottom left-hand side. Apparently, he liked gingers. And for those of you who don't know, gingers are redheads. Okay. So anyway, he also translated the Bible into German. Okay. Now, the things that he thought, okay, were things like sola scriptura. The only authority in Christianity is the Bible. So, if you read it in the Bible, it doesn't matter what the Pope says. Bible is the main source. Okay? Sola fide, and by the way, sola fide and sola scriptura and sola gratia, these are all in Latin. Okay? Sola fide is salvation comes from faith alone. You can't earn it. So if you're a good person, it doesn't matter if you don't do the salvation thing. You go to hell. Okay? And not even a nice hell. It's just hell. Okay? Even if you worked really hard and did really nice things. Sola gratia is salvation is a free gift of God's grace. Again, not something you have to earn. And these were kind of controversial things that Martin Luther did aside from eating all the food that was out there. By the way, he wrote the 95 Theses whenever he was 33 years old. Same age that Thomas Jefferson was when he wrote the Declaration of Independence, and same age I was whenever I started dating my lovely wife, Amber Don Dugdale, again. I think I did better than those two. But anyway, so here's a nice little map of the Reformation in Europe. You can see that the green areas are areas where the Lutheran Church under Martin Luther took place. You have the Anglican area in England, where all of England becomes Anglican, which is kind of Catholic light. They don't have any saints, and their priests can get married. You have the Calvinist, and the Calvinists are much closer to the Netherlands, but you don't see a lot of areas there. They're also near, what's the name of the nation? Geneva, Switzerland. Okay. Eastern Orthodox Church that starts in what was formerly Greece and expands up into Russia. In between Russia and the Catholic areas, you have like a big glob of different types of religion. The Ottoman Empire, you have Muslims, and if you go way over to the Orange area, you have a bunch of Catholics. Okay, so anyway, yeah, about half my family is Catholic on my mom's side. Okay, so in the Leipzig Debate, okay, Jonathan Eck is going to declare Luther basically against the church, okay, uh, and he wants to burn him, okay. Luther's calling for all the German princes to rebel. He's attacking sacraments. He wants the clergy to marry. He's trying to get as many people on board with him as possible, and he says that faith alone brings salvation. Okay, so in the Edict of Worms, the Holy Roman Emperor will support the Pope. The Holy Roman Emperor is still Charles V. Okay, he's going to be in charge during the Protestant Reformation. He's also the guy that's in charge when Cortez takes over Mexico. Okay, so that's all happening about the same time in 1521. Cortez conquers the Aztecs, while Charles V is worried about excommunicating Luther. Okay, Luther is not allowed to be in the church anymore, which Luther's like, you know what? I don't want to be Catholic anymore anyway. I've got a good thing going. I'm married. I'm fat. I've helped fix our religion. So whenever he's excommunicated, Luther doesn't care. He ignores it, and German princes began to hide him from the Holy Roman Empire, which shows how strong they are. They never caught him, and the Pope, who was doing whatever popes do. So that leads us to the end of today. So I'm hoping everyone's having a great day. Be good to each other. Don't do crack or other drugs. If you see someone trying to push someone off of a cliff, tell them don't do it. Okay? Let's make the world a better place today. No more senseless murder. That's basically what I'm asking everyone to help me with today. Try and just help all the senseless murder around you. Okay? Be safe. I'll see you in 2 days.